career is about dodging adversity.
I got an interesting one for you. So we're talking about Kevin Durant and where he ranks among the all-time NBA greats. Would you put someone like the big ticket Kevin Garnett over Kevin Durant?
Not even a little bit, no.
You wouldn't consider
Garnett's
the big
ticket? Not a
ticket?
top 20 player of all time.
He was dominant, though.
He was not a top 20 player of all time. Maybe. But I mean,
he's definitely in the 15 range.
Garnett?
Probably.
I can tell you 15 players right now that are better than Kevin Garnett. Was Kevin Garnett even the best player other than that 2004 season?
He was. I think in the year they won the championship, he was arguably the best player in the league. The 07 year on that Big Three team, I think you could argue.
Is Karl Malone better than Kevin Garnett?
Ugh.
Yes, he is.
Is
Karl Malone a top 15 player of all time? No. All right, so Garnett, if we're thinking about power forwards, is Nowitzki better than him?
That's a tough one too, Colin.
Nowitzki is better than Kevin Garnett, dude.
I think there's conversations for it. That's all I'm saying.
Nowitzki is a better player than Kevin Garnett was.
I think there are a lot of lists out there that would have Kevin Garnett a top 15 player.
It was close, but Kevin Garnett and Nowitzki.
Listen, partner, I understand that you don't think so.
Nowitzki's might be one of the most underrated players and one of the most storied careers in that franchise's history. And in terms of a ring, as impressive of a playoff ring as it comes.
I think Dirk definitely would be top 20, no doubt. He's definitely a top 20 player.
Is he better than Durant? Is Garnett?
I would probably put Kevin Garnett over Durant.
Why?
I think his time with the Timberwolves, in his era, he ran into a lot of tough Laker teams. And I thought he got swindled out of a couple of MVPs in those early on years because of how dominant the Lakers were as a team.
Which one? Nash stole the one that Kobe should have got when he averaged 36 a game. And Nash, the other year, they had the third most efficient offense in the history of the National Basketball Association to that point. So who are you going to give it? Who is he taking over? Duncan?
I think the rings conversation, the one ring is where Garnett and the lack of the MVP is probably where Garnett loses it. But that time, that weird time where Shaq and Kobe were playing together and then Shaq gets traded, I think Garnett was the best player in the league for about 3 or 4 years, especially early on in LeBron's career when he was a rookie and a second and third year player. I think Garnett was probably the best player.
Dirk is a 12-time All-NBA player. Garnett is a 9-time All-NBA player. Now, Garnett is a much better defender than Dirk was, but Dirk is a better offensive player. Dirk has had a more storied career. He's had probably a more successful career because he won with a team that drafted him.
I will give you this. Duncan definitely outclasses him and definitely.
In every facet, Duncan's a top 10 player of all time.
He kind of lived in that shadow of Duncan, no doubt. But he was a 12-time all-defensive player as well. As you mentioned, he was a great defensive player. So
I could probably name right now 6 centers that are better than Garnett all time.
Hakeem, Bill, Wilt,
Shaq, Russell, Shaquille, Kareem. Those are 5 right there. People don't want to say it. Moses Malone won 3 straight MVPs. Won a championship too. There's another one there. Karl Malone, where are you putting him? And then you got to go with the guards. And then all of a sudden the Steph Currys come into play. The Magic Johnsons come into play. You're not even bringing up the small forwards. Is Durant a better player than Garnett was?
I think it's closer than you think. I do. I think it's closer. I personally would put the big ticket over Durant.
If you're drafting a team right now, you're taking Garnett over Kevin Durant.
Not in this current NBA, but back in when Garnett was playing and back in the time.
Your draft, you need to win a championship. Who are you taking? You don't have to make it complicated.
I am going to make it complicated because I think that's a conversation.
All right, then make the conversation.
If it was the early 2000s when Garnett played and how the game was played, I'm taking Garnett because he had that post move, the back down, the fadeaway, the mid-range jumper, the rebounding, the defending. He was tough. I'd probably take Garnett when he played. Now, when Durant played, you're taking Durant because you're shooting 23s a game.
So, in terms of playing, you're taking a player that can score at all 3 levels. He's a 30-point-per-game player, and he's a very good postseason player, too.
We have to measure, I think, when these guys played. Because if we want to play that game, we could go back to Wilt and Bill Russell and have a lot of crazy talks about that.
That's fine. I mean, they played against each other. You're acting like it's 3 eras apart. They played against each other. Durant's been great for 12 years. Garnett did not have that long of a prime, comparatively. Garnett was great for, in 8 years?
When he went to the Nets, it all unfolded. So what was that, 2012, 2013? For a 12-year period, Garnett was unbelievable.
He wasn't even the best player on that finals team. He wasn't even the best player.
On the Celtics team?
Who won the MVP? Paul Pierce won that MVP.
You think Paul Pierce was better than Garnett on that team?
Hold on.
I totally disagree, man.
Mike, he won the Finals MVP.
So, dude, that's
What? That is what?
I do not agree, dude. Kevin Durant. I'm getting my Kevins mixed up. Garnett was the best player on that team.
Pierce, I think underrated, and he was the best player in that playoff run, and the best player on that playoff team.
I think Garnett was the best. We could agree to disagree there.
I
think KG.
What about the voters, Mike?
KG was the best player on that team.
But everybody else was wrong who voted for him to get Finals MVP.
I want to say it's one series. I understand it's the finals. It's very important.
It's the biggest series of his life.
It's one series, and KG wasn't a plumber in that series by any means either. I think they don't win without all three of them. Even how bad Ray Allen played, and I think we could agree on that. Allen was kind of like the one finding his way during that big three, maybe the odd man out on that. But I think if you take one of them off, they'd struggle more with KG not in that lineup than Paul Pierce. They don't win with all three. I understand that. But I think KG was more important, that team, and the best player on that team. Defensively, his dominance down low.
100%.
His
but
dominance.
Their closer,
their
closer was Pierce.
It's hard to be a closer when you're big. I agree with that. And even if you look back at those Spurs teams, Duncan wasn't the closer. It was Parker and Ginobili.
I mean, was it? I mean, Parker was great in 07.
Ginobili and Parker would take the shots. And
it was Duncan who was the rock of that team. You can't say the same about Garnett because you can't measure those careers in comparison.
I think there is a pity vote. Not a pity vote.
Oh, Mike, you have no idea what you're talking about. A pity vote back in 2008,
There is a pity vote because Paul Pierce was the guy who was a Boston Celtic.
You're just
he
making
was
this
around.
up as you go.
I'm not making it up as I go.
How do you know it's a pity vote? Were you there in the room when they decided to vote on that?
I just think there's something to be said about how Pierce was the one who was with the organization the longest. He didn't leave. He had chances to leave. He didn't leave. He stuck it out, and the two of the best players at the time came there. I don't know. We'd have to go back and look at the numbers in these finals, but Garnett was unbelievable as well.
He was good. He averaged 18 and 13.
But Colin, I don't think it's crazy for me to say that Garnett was the best player.
Hold on. We're talking about top 15 player of all time, allegedly. I mean, let's think about this. So the 5 or 6 centers right there. Done. You got LeBron. You got Jordan. You got Magic. You got Bird.
Where's Kobe?
Kobe's in there.
I'd put Kobe. I'd probably put Kobe 3 or 4 on that list.
Kobe's probably 12.
Wow, dude. We're completely off on that. We both agree, Michael. And I'd put LeBron, but I'll give us on our list Michael and then LeBron.
Kareem's the third best player of all time.
Okay, I'll hear that. I'd probably put Kobe 4 then. I think Kobe's the most recognizable Laker of all time, in my opinion. And I think with the 5 championships and with how many maybe lacking in the MVPs. Lacking in the MVPs because he was just a scorer. I understand that. But I'd probably put Kobe 4. Maybe that's a little personal bias. Keep going on.
Definitely personal. He wasn't even the best player on 3 of those teams.
On the Shaq teams, they don't win without him either. And he was the best player. If we want to do Kobe has finals MVPs with Shaq, right?
No.
Never.
Shaq won all 3.
All 3. Okay.
Yes. Shaq was he was a 34 and 20 player, and Kobe was like flirting with the 18 to 20 range. He started to get much, much better, and they ended up taking Kobe's side. That's when they shipped him out.
Very important on those runs. Keep going.
So LeBron, Jordan, and then you got the 5 centers. So that's Chamberlain, Russell, Kareem, Olajuwon, and O'Neal.
Okay, so you'd put all those bigs over a guy like Steph. Would you put Steph?
I'm not saying Curry's right in the thick of that. Olajuwon's a 2-time champion, and he won 2 MVPs, I believe. So, and Olajuwon dominated Shaquille O'Neal, swept him in 4 games in '95. So, Olajuwon...
Young Shaq, I will say. Young Shaq.
Fine. It was the only good center Shaq ever played in the playoffs in his life. But Olajuwon, O'Neal, Chamberlain... So, we're looking at 10 already. And Bird is on there. Bird's a better player than Garnett. Bird's a better player... I mean, it's different players than Durant.
I'm not arguing.
Larry won 3 straight MVPs, was better than Magic at the peak of his career, had a slew of all-time great playoff runs, was the best player on that 86 playoff team, which is a top 5 NBA team of all time.
I think I'd put Larry somewhere between the 7 and 8 range. Would you agree?
I'm not putting Kobe at 4. I'm not doing that. There's a bit of revisionist history about how good Kobe was. How good was Kobe in Game 7 against the Celtics? You should look up the stats in that game. He was awful. Awful.